Today, I play a little overrated, underrated with you in the NBA, plus I'll throw in some NFL.
And I'm here to tell you which cards to buy, sell, or hold.
This is The Forecast. Hey, sports card investors, I'm Amber Wilson. Happy to be back here with you guys for another episode of The Forecast. We missed last week because it was Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving instead of worrying about watching The Forecast. I hope that you ate a lot of food. I know I did. But now it's back to reality, and back to reality means back to bringing you guys sports card hobby info. And so today I have 4 players for you that I want to discuss. I got to do a little underrated, overrated in the NBA. So I'm excited about today's show. But I'm actually going to start in the NFL because, of course, it's NFL season and a catastrophic injury took place. And it's interesting what's happening to the player's card in response to that injury. First, though, I want to remind you guys really quickly, if you haven't done so already, to check out marketmoversapp.com. Market Movers is our new version. Market Movers Lite is our new version of Market Movers. It's where you can find all of the card price charts that you see on today's episode. And of course, we still have Market Movers Pro available to you as well. Market Movers Lite is half the price of Market Movers Pro. Whichever one works out best for you guys, though, go check it out. All that information is at marketmoversapp.com. So let's hop right into things with the NFL. I mentioned that there was a player catastrophic injury and his card prices are reacting to that injury. He's a rookie and he was having a heck of a rookie season. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now. Of course, I'm talking about Joe Burrow. Now, Joe Burrow is having an impressive rookie season, and then he blows out not just his ACL, but he blows out his MCL as well. And the hopes and dreams of Bengals fans now all rely on Joe Burrow's recovery from that pretty catastrophic season-ending injury. So a huge bummer there for Cincinnati fans, but they did get to see enough of Joe Burrow to feel confident, I think, that they've got their guy. I mean, Justin Herbert is the only player maybe having a better rookie season than Joe Burrow was having, but I feel like if you're Cincinnati fans, you felt pretty good about your pick in Joe Burrow anyways, because he was having an impressive season. Now, of course, injuries often in the sports card hobby mean opportunity. So that's why I wanted to talk here to you guys about Joe Burrow and show you what's happening here with his card. Now, we don't know how he's going to come back from this injury. Obviously, if he comes back 100%, then buying his card, if it's down, reacting to that injury seems like the way to go. A bit of a gamble because, of course, I guess he could come back from a blown ACL and a blown MCL and never look the same again. The good news, though, for Joe Burrow is the surgeon who repaired his ACL and MCL is the same surgeon who repaired Ben Roethlisberger's elbow and Tom Brady's knee. So he's certainly in the best hands that football can put him in terms of getting repaired after a pretty catastrophic injury. So let's go ahead, without further ado, let's take a look at what's happening here with Joe Burrow's card from his injury. Now, this is going to give us information. We're looking at this chart that stems back before his injury. And this, by the way, is his 2020 Mosaic PSA 10. Now, this card has come back down a lot from that initial peak when his first graded copies hit the market back in October. So his card was already on the decline a bit, technically down 79% since early October. It's because it hit such a huge spike when it first came to the market. But let's look at just since that injury, because that's what I really want to focus on here. His injury happened on November 22nd, and since November 22nd, his card has dropped about 15% in value. So you do see what historically has been the case with injuries, is that injuries present some of the best buying opportunities. That appears like that's the direction Joe Burrow's cards are headed as well. So let's get Geoff's advice and hear what he thinks that we should be doing with Joe Burrow's cards.
Amber, when it comes to Joe Burrow, I think you should wait a little while and then buy. Look, Joe Burrow put up incredible numbers his rookie year, record-breaking numbers. until the time he got injured. Now, I know this is going to be a massive injury for him to come back from, but he is a quarterback. So that is good news in terms of he's not going to have to run the ball every down or deal with that type of thing like the other skill position players would have to deal with. So if you believe, like I do, that he's going to come back from the injury eventually and resume his career where he left off and go on and have a really good career, then what you should do is wait until the market has bottomed out on Joe Burrow. We are not there yet. I would wait till probably early in the offseason. By then, a lot of people will have forgotten about him. They wouldn't have seen him play recently. Interest will have shifted to the other players who made playoff runs, and then consider buying. That is when I would buy Joe Burrow cards and invest in him for next year and beyond.
Thanks, Geoff. So now I want to move on to the NBA. And in the NBA here, I'm doing a little overrated, underrated today because I'm going to give you guys a couple players who I think are overrated, and I'll talk about a player who might be a little bit underrated as well. So let me start coming out of Australia with Ben Simmons. I said Australia like I could say it with an Australian accent, and then no accent came out because I'm really, really bad at accents. Australia. Is that anywhere near it? Anyways, Ben Simmons. He was the number 1 overall pick out of Australia. So he came into the league with all sorts of hype around him. And then we didn't see him play his rookie year, even though he then goes on to win Rookie of the Year his sophomore year, essentially, his second year in the league, which was a whole bunch of crock, if you ask me, because I don't think you should be up for Rookie of the Year when you've been hanging around an NBA facility for a year. I know he wasn't playing, but still, you're on the bench, you're learning, you're adjusting to life in the NBA. I feel like it gives you a significant advantage there. But you are talking about a guy who comes in number 1 pick, wins Rookie of the Year, even if it's a year later. He's a multi-time All-Star. A lot of hype around Ben Simmons. And frankly, I find Ben Simmons overrated. Overrated. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me because Ben Simmons is considered an elite defender. What's funny, though, is if you pull some of the advanced metrics, multiple advanced metrics would tell a very different story about him actually being an elite defender. In fact, when you look at the advanced metrics, it's pretty clear. Joel Embiid is an elite defender for the 76ers. Ben Simmons, you could make an argument, is actually not. Like, he's a good defender, but not necessarily an elite defender. Now, fine. I'm not a huge advanced metrics girl, so it would be super hypocritical of me to sit here and talk about how Ben Simmons sucks because of the advanced metrics, okay? Ben Simmons is clearly a good defender, whether he's an elite defender or not. The eye test alone tells you that, and I hate metrics because you can make metrics fit any argument that you want to make. I obviously think Ben Simmons is overrated, so I can easily pull a bunch of advanced metrics that support that position, even on the defensive side of the ball. But I don't have to do that when it comes to Ben Simmons on the offensive side of the court, because we all know that Ben Simmons has problems on that end of the floor, and he certainly has problems shooting. And I'm always hearing with Ben Simmons, he's gonna develop that shot. And I have been hearing that with Ben Simmons for years. So even if you believe Ben Simmons is an elite defender, you're never gonna convince me that he's elite on the offensive side of the ball. And for those reasons, frankly, I find Ben Simmons to be a bit overrated. Also, I'm down here in Miami. Oh, this way. Oh, well, this way too, actually. It's Wayne. I'm down here in Miami, obviously a huge Miami Heat fan and a sports radio host down here locally. And we have a feller named Jimmy Butler on our team who, of course, had a brief stint up there in Philadelphia. And it's very clear that Jimmy Butler and Joel Embiid are really, really good friends. What also seems clear is that Jimmy Butler does not like Ben Simmons. And Jimmy Butler has this pattern of not liking guys who come into the league with a ton of hype and who don't work hard, or who he deems as not working hard and trying to live up to their potential. So one could read between the lines here and decipher that maybe Ben Simmons is one of those kind of guys. Karl Anthony Towns appears to be that in the mind of Jimmy Butler, and so does Ben Simmons. And that might be one of the reasons that Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, is there chemistry issues there? Is there a locker room problem? When Al Horford was in Philadelphia, he said to the press that there was a locker room problem in that locker room. It seems pretty clear to people that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are not the best of friends. And so a lot of people question that matchup or that pairing of those two players. So there's always trade rumors circulating around both of those guys. Of course, they're both incredible players. And so the 76ers, or they're supposed to be incredible players, even if you think Ben Simmons is overrated, he's still a very, very good player. And the 76ers are constantly having to tell the media that we're not trading either of those guys. Anyways, Ben Simmons, even if you think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, he is currently rehabbing from a knee injury. So I think that we could all agree that he certainly has been derailed by injuries in his career. And we'd like to see him have a little bit more durability and spend a little bit more time on that court. Now let's take a look at Ben Simmons' 2016 Prism PSA 10. Over the last 90 days, look at this. The hobby doesn't agree with me. His card is up about 19%, but 19% is not a big jump. That means that his card is generally somewhat stagnant. Now, if he comes out and he plays at an all-star level again this year, I mean, he has been a 2-time all-star, then of course you're looking for that optimism to return to his card and for attention to go back towards his card. The 76ers underperformed this year. He wasn't even available. He was injured. So that's why that card is going to end up being stagnant right now in December of 2020. Let's turn to Geoff, though. I want to see what Geoff thinks about Ben Simmons. And hey, Geoff, buy, sell, or hold.
Amber, when it comes to Ben Simmons, I am buying. Yes, I am buying Ben Simmons, and I am buying that the Philadelphia 76ers will have a much better year this year. Look, I know they were a disaster last year. I get that, but they made a lot of offseason moves. They moved Al Horford out. They brought new people in. They're going to have more shooting this year. They should hopefully have a better opportunity to shine this year. Don't forget that it was the 76ers who were a Kawhi Leonard ball bouncing around and going in basket away from themselves potentially winning the NBA championship the season before last. They were maybe the second best team in the NBA 2 seasons ago. So this team could come back. They could have real chemistry. They've got a real shot. I think people are sleeping on Ben Simmons right now. I am a buy on Ben Simmons.
So from one guy in the NBA who I think is kind of overrated to another guy in the NBA who I also think is overrated, and that is Draymond Green. Now with Draymond Green, another guy who is considered an elite defender, and Draymond Green has the personal accolades to prove it, right? He did win Defensive Player of the Year. He is a multi-time All-Star as well. He's on all the he's been named to the All-NBA defensive team multiple times. Fine, Draymond Green, he's a good defender. He's also benefited greatly by the guys he plays around. He was playing on a team that was a dynasty team, and that made Draymond Green look all the better. And that's not just my opinion, by the way. When the NBA did a secret survey, an anonymous survey of NBA players back in 2019, where they voted on each other for all sorts of different stuff, they asked NBA players who's the most overrated player in the NBA. Now, given only 47 NBA players, even though it was anonymous, had the cojones to vote for most overrated player. But 17% of them voted for Draymond Green. So clearly some of his peers think he's overrated as well. It is not just me who thinks Draymond Green is overrated. Now, yes, he's an elite defender. Fine. We also know that kind of like Ben Simmons, he's terrible offensively. And I would say Draymond Green's actually terrible offensively. Like nobody's sitting here saying Draymond Green, he's going to develop that shot in a couple of years. You know, nobody's out here saying that about Draymond anymore. Also, all the proof you need that Draymond Green is overrated is just look at the Warriors this past year. That's what a team looks like when Draymond Green is your best player on your team. That's what a team looks like when Draymond Green is your leader. Awful. Now, the Warriors. There's going to be attention paid to the Warriors again this season. The headlines are not going to be about Draymond Green, though. They're going to be about that injury to Klay Thompson. They're going to be about the selection of James Wiseman. So Draymond Green is going to continue right now to fly under the radar. Much of Draymond Green's card value came from that role that he played during the dynasty era of the Warriors. Now, with Klay Thompson, when we thought he was coming back, we were all thinking that the Warriors were going to be great again. That doesn't appear like it might be the case. I mean, they're going to get Steph back, but Klay Thompson is such a key piece for them that I'm not sure we know what to do exactly with this Warriors team. And of course, we don't know what James Wiseman is going to look like. And I think they added Kelly Oubre Jr. as well to that team. That might help them some. But it's going to be interesting what this Warriors team actually looks like this season and what happens here with these guys' cards who are playing on the Warriors. Let's take a look at Draymond Green's 2012 Prism PSA 10. Now, over the last 90 days, Draymond's card has slowly trended downwards, and now it's down about 60%. I'm not sure that I see that turning around unless he can play some sort of massive role for the Warriors this year. And again, we know what it looks like when Draymond Green has to play a massive role on a team, especially a team that won't have Klay Thompson available to it. I'm not sure that bodes well for Draymond Green, but let's see if Geoff agrees with me that Draymond Green is an overrated player. Geoff, buy, sell, or hold?
Amber, on Draymond Green, I am sell. Look, I've never been a big Draymond Green fan, but you had to be a big Golden State fan because they were the greatest show to watch on the court for several seasons up until last year. Well, unfortunately, there's no more KD there, as we know, and now there's no more Klay Thompson for the next season at least. That's putting a lot of pressure on the shoulders of Steph Curry and Draymond Green. It's not going to be the same Golden State team. And while I do think we're going to see some big shooting and big numbers out of Steph Curry, I'm not as optimistic about what Draymond Green is going to bring to the team, nor am I optimistic about the team's outlook overall with a Klay Thompson injury. So for me, now is the time to sell Draymond Green.
All right, so I've given you guys a couple guys who I think are overrated in the NBA. So I'll give you a guy who's kind of underrated, so to speak. And I'm talking about Giannis's right-hand man in Khris Middleton. Now, Khris Middleton is mostly underrated just because of the very fact that he plays next to Giannis. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's the Robin if Giannis is the Batman, and the Batman's the one who gets all the attention, even though the Robin plays a very pivotal, important, crucial role as well. So a lot of people talk about the Bucks like Giannis is playing by himself up there. Like Giannis is playing with a bunch of pieces. There's nobody else up there. And I would say Khris Middleton is far from a nobody. He's not just another piece up there. I do think Khris Middleton is an underrated player in that regard. I'm not saying he's a Giannis caliber player. I question whether he could be a superstar on a team by himself. Like if you're removing Giannis from that team, which all the trade rumors always there about Giannis. At the time of taping, by the way, I don't know if this is going to change by the time this airs. At the time of taping, Giannis has not signed his Supermax extension that he's eligible to sign now. So we don't know at the time I'm taping this show whether he's staying in Milwaukee. We may not know by the time this airs. I think he has till December 22nd to sign that Supermax. And then we may not even know after that because maybe he turns on the Supermax, maybe still figures out a way to stay in Milwaukee, although I would think that's a sign that he's probably strongly considering leaving Milwaukee. And then at that point, what happens? Where does he go? I mean, the Heat, they have to do a sign and trade for Giannis now because we gave Bam that extension. I digress. Khris Middleton could find himself in a position where he is the guy on that Milwaukee Bucks team. And I don't know what that looks like for Khris Middleton, but what I will tell you right now is that Khris Middleton doesn't get probably the attention that Khris Middleton deserves because of Giannis standing next to him. I'm talking about a guy who is a complete player in Khris Middleton. I mean, he averaged this last season 21 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game. He also improved his efficiency. He boosted his field goal percentage by 6% last year compared to the year before. And then, of course, the Bucks now have brought in Jrue Holiday. So that is going to be interesting because that should elevate the Bucks as a team generally. Let's take a look. I want to show you what's happening here with Khris Middleton's card because I think that this is a little bit interesting. Khris Middleton's 2012 Prism PSA 10. That's his most popular rookie card. It's been declining significantly recently. I think that's interesting. And that's got to be due, I would think, to the fact that the Bucks have that unfulfilled expectation. The Bucks, they get their asses whooped by the Heat in the postseason, in the bubble. They can't even make it to an Eastern Conference Finals. And so we see a decline in the interest in Khris Middleton's cards. Again, though, the Bucks, they bring in Jrue Holiday. They're trying to do what they can to keep Giannis in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. So they're making the moves that they can to try to win. Now, they mortgage their future to bring in Holiday with the draft picks that they gave away. But you've got to make that move because if you're the Bucks, the chances of you ever drafting in the next 10 years another Giannis is nilch. I mean, it is slim to none. He's a generational type player. So you do whatever you can to keep the generational type player that you already have in uniform and hope he doesn't leave you. Once the season starts, there's going to be a lot of attention circulating the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, again, this is assuming Giannis hasn't signed his Supermax. If he signs his Supermax, there will still be a ton of attention. But particularly if he doesn't sign his Supermax, because then we're going to be wondering what's going to happen with Giannis and Milwaukee. So there's going to be all sorts of attention paid to that Milwaukee Bucks team. If Khris Middleton shows off and shows out, which I do think he's very capable of, then maybe that brings some attention back to his cards. So I think he's a bit of an undervalued player in the NBA, but let's find out what Geoff thinks. Let's take his advice.
So Amber, Khris Middleton has been a player whose cards have never really been respected by the hobby. They've always been low dollar cards. People haven't really been chasing them very much. But in my opinion, it is a buy opportunity, a value buy opportunity on Khris Middleton. Look, this guy's numbers are really actually quite solid, and he's had a great impact on the Bucks' success the last few seasons. I believe that Giannis and that team is going to get it done at some point. I believe that they're going to come back this year and be the force that they were in the regular season. I know they weren't that in the bubble. They disappointed a lot of people in the bubble, but they were the best team in the NBA for a lot of the regular season before sports got paused. I believe they're going to find their form again this year. And look, if there is a championship run in their future, there are always secondary players on the team that really benefit. Their cards typically benefit greatly from championship type runs. And for the Bucks, Khris Middleton's going to be one of those guys. His cards are already pretty inexpensive. It's a value buy. It's a little bit of a risk, but what are you risking since his prices aren't that much to begin with? To me, it's a buy on Khris Middleton.
All right, guys. Now, let me know what you guys thought. If you guys agreed with my underratedness, my overratedness, just general thoughts on the show. I try to read the comments, so make sure that you write the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's really important. That really helps us out. You hit the bell icon. It's free. It's simple. It's super easy. And again, marketmoversapp.com. Go check that out for all of your card price charts. I'll be back with you again next week. Thanks for, as always, hanging out with me and watching the forecast.